today. UFC Abu Dhabi is in the books, and this week they make their return to the world famous Apex Arena. That's right, I called it an arena. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we are here to go over a couple of things going around in the MMA sphere. You know, the MMA news. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get off into it. Let's start out first. Last week's card, UFC, Abu Dhabi, main event. Reinier De Ridder defeats Robert the Reaper Whittaker. Look, man, Rob had his moments in the fight. You know, Rob had his moments. I know it's kind of sad because our Robbie Whittaker, you know, our Bobby Knuckles, he's aging out. You know what I'm saying? I ain't saying he's that old, but he's got miles on him. You know what I mean? He's got more miles than a Studebaker on him. You know what I'm talking about? And the homie, he's aging out. Nevertheless, he had a few moments in the fight. He dropped De Ridder. I mean, you know, he was doing his thing, but you could tell that constant spamming of the knees by De Ridder. And De Ridder has an interesting way of delivering these knees that you don't see a lot from fighters of his size. He it's almost like his knees are like a jab, right? Because I wouldn't necessarily say they're powerful enough to just level somebody. Of course they will if he hits it correctly, of course. But with that being said, he kind of spams the knees almost like a solid jab, you know what I'm saying? And then every now and then he kind of turns up the heat, puts a little bit more power behind them. But those constantly hitting you in the midsection and the ribs and the solar plexus the entire fight, it's going to gas you out, man. It's going to take it out of you straight up. And that's exactly what happened to Robert Whittaker. So now, Reinier De Ridder, he goes out there, he defeats him. Okay. So the real question is, where does he fit in the upper echelon of middleweight at this point? We know that Khamzat Chimaev is going to be facing Dricus Duplessis, my guy, in a few weeks for the middleweight championship. We also know Paulo Costa is calling out Khamzat Chimaev. Of course, Paulo Costa is nowhere close to getting a title shot, but that's still going on. You know, the eraser is back, and he in the mix. So you got that going on. But then you still got Israel Adesanya. He's lingering in the wings. You know what I'm saying? I kind of feel like the UFC was maneuvering for a fight between Izzy and Sean Strickland. But, of course, Sean Strickland wants to jump people in the cage at local fights. And now the homie has been suspended from fighting for right now. So we'll see how that plays out. But then you also have Fluffy Hernandez. He's lurking around. You know what I'm saying? I know he's got a fight in a few weeks against Roman Dolidze, but still, he's lurking around. He hasn't lost in forever. So there's a lot of guys up at the top of the division, and it's going to be interesting to see how the UFC is going to slot in Reinier De Ridder because, I mean, he did just defeat Robert Whittaker, and I'm not sure what Robert's ranking was before the fight, but more than likely, De Ridder's about to take it. So, very interesting to see what the what the UFC is going to do at middleweight, you know, in the upcoming months. Personally, I still think, while I spoke about Israel Adesanya, I still think at this point, the UFC needs to do Izzy versus Kelvin too. At this point, both men more toward the tail end of their career. Just go on and boot it up. Just go on and lock it in and let's see what happens. But nevertheless, bro, I just want to see it. You know what I'm saying? I just want to see these two get after it again. I don't know why. I mean, you know, maybe Izzy goes out there and waxes Kelvin easily, but I just wanted to bring that up, that I just really want to see that. Nevertheless, we will see where they slot Reinier De Ridder. But that was actually the main event match. Let's see. That was the main event match on that show. I apologize as I'm checking my notes here. about what we wanted to talk about today. How about this? How about in the co-main event, we had Petr Yan, you know what I'm saying, the Russian James Bond, go out there and he defeats Marcus McGee. This was an outstanding fight. It had its moments. I'm not going to say it was outstanding. It was outstanding if you're a Petr Yan fan. You know what I'm saying? Petr Yan, Yan looked to be in great condition. He looked to be back in his original form. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the old Yan would have got him out of there and got him out of there early in the early rounds, but McGee is tough. If anything, he is durable. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, he packed some power in his shots. Nevertheless, it wasn't anything that Yan has never encountered before, and that's what I was talking about in my pre-fight breakdown. Yan's just had a strength of schedule that just it's amazing. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I just didn't really see a way in which McGee was going to go out there and defeat that. It's just they haven't faced the same competitors. They haven't been through the same fires, the same wars. So shout out to Petr Yan. He goes out there. He gets it done. And to his credit, you know, he's recently been campaigning to get back in there and get another title shot. And Merab has actually obliged him, in which Merab says that after he goes out there and defeats Corey Sandhagen, he is willing to give Petr Yan a rematch for the Bantamweight Championship of the world. Now, easier said than done, because first you got to go out there and beat the Sandman, Corey Sandhagen. And, you know, maybe, I mean, it's Merab, so maybe he just easily goes out there, out-cardios him and wins it in less than 5 rounds, and then he's ready for Yan. But we will see how that'll work out. I would definitely be interested in seeing the rematch. You know, I mean, it might not go any different, but anytime Petr Yan, you know, is going to fight for a championship, I'm all down to watch that. So that's smooth. Let's move on. We also had Shira Magomedov goes in there with Marc-Andre Barriault. Shira gets the win, but let me tell you, I believe it was in the second round, Marc-Andre landed a solid shot that broke the nose of Shira. And, I mean, it smashed it. It was flat. You know what I'm saying? It was flat. Flat like Kansas. You know what I'm talking about? And, bro, it was, I believe his corner reset it in between rounds because it didn't look as bad when he came out in the next round. But to Shira's credit, after taking that devastating punch to the face, flattened his nose, he stayed with it. You know, he kept spamming knees to Marc-Andre. This zapped away all the gas of Marc-Andre, slowed him down a great deal to where Shira didn't have to worry about a ton of his shots landing. Because, you know, at the end of the day, man, Shira got extremely good footwork. He's going to move around. His kicks are almost like jabs and punches. He's moving quickly. And from that point on in the third round, he put it on Marc-Andre. So he definitely deserved that win. You know, I think the UFC was looking for more of a finish or, you know, devastating knockout from Shira, but that's not what occurred. Nevertheless, we'll see where they'll slot him moving forward. I doubt that they're going to be leaning toward any sort of matchups between him and Israel Adesanya, which I know that was what was really being hyped, being touted for a while. But I think if he would have finished Marc-Andre in spectacular fashion, then the UFC would probably be leaning more toward maybe doing that fight. You know what I'm saying? But when you don't get a ton of fanfare in your win over Marc-Andre, and I kind of feel like they set him up to knock him out, you know what I mean? Marc-Andre was supposed to go flat out on the canvas. He's supposed to do the job, you know what I'm saying? So we'll see where they slot Shira from this point, but I don't know if he's going to get that fight with Izzy anytime soon. Nevertheless, that was a good fight. Asu Alabayev stepped in there with Jose Ochoa. This was a good fight. Asu goes out there and gets the win. It was pretty back and forth. You know, I saw some people believing that Ochoa should have won. I didn't really Didn't really bother me either way. Whoever won the fight is whoever won the fight, so I was cool with that. We also had Bogdan Guskov went out there and knocked out Nikita Krylov. That was outstanding. You know what I'm saying? Kind of what a lot of us expected, but it was what it was. Bryce Mitchell gets back in the win column. He takes a decision win over Syed Nurmagomedov. So that gets taken care of. Performance of the night. This will shock you. Went to the old head, the Unk. That's right. Went to him. We talking about Muslim Salikov goes out there and defeats Carlos Leal. Knocked him out, and when he knocked him out, it was quality the way Carlos hit the ground because he dropped to one knee and then just kind of folded over sideways. Outstanding. Muslim outstanding. Goes out there, gets the win by knockout. Outstanding to see. We also had Davy Grant. What about the old head? What about the Unk? Going out there, and he takes care of Damon Blackshear. Not a lot of us seen this coming, but as the fight was going on, I'm kind of watching, and it's like Damon Blackshear, he kind of seems like to me that if he can't go out there and instantly dominate his opponent, it seems that he kind of gets lax and he kind of starts to coast, and he's kind of looking for that perfect shot to either drop his opponent for a club and sub or just knock him out, period. I would also say he might want to, I'm a nobody. I'm not a fighter or anything like that. So heaven forbid I give him any advice. I would just say in my opinion, his entries don't look the best. And I think that's what kind of kept him at bay against Davy Grant, because I don't think he had good enough entries to be able to get around that defense of Davy. He looked solid in the first round. He was able to grapple and wrestle and everything. But the second and third, Davy put it on him. So we'll see how that goes. Shout out to Davy Grant. He's back in the win column. He's back he came back off of an injury, off of a surgery and everything. So shout out to him for getting the win. Finally, last fight I was going to bring up, Tabitha Ricci goes out there, and I'm just talking about this because she got a KO win as she finishes Amanda Ribas. This was outstanding to see the way that the initial downfall of Amanda Ribas began when Ricci caught her in the eye with a well-placed elbow as she had her up against the cage. It was interesting to see in the sense of, as soon as Amanda Ribas took that shot right to the eye, right around the, right there, I don't know if it messed up her orbital. I've seen her on socials, and she doesn't seem to have any visible damage right there, so I guess it didn't break her orbital. Maybe she just got hit in the eye, and it just about did her in. I don't really know. Nevertheless, shout out to Tabitha Ricci. She goes out there, gets a finish. That's something we rarely see from her, so hopefully, she keeps that momentum going, and we'll see where they take her. Nevertheless, man, that was UFC Abu Dhabi, and in this week, the UFC is back in the Apex, back in the world famous, world class Apex, and it won't get no classier than the Las Vegas Apex. And in the main event, Tatsuro Taira steps in the octagon with Hyunsung Park. Look, man, I'm going to have to go along with Taira to go out there and get the win. I say this all the time, strength of schedule matters. Your experience and the caliber of fighters that you fought matters. And I think the guys that Taira has fought, considering he only has that loss in the octagon to Brandon Royval, I got to go along with Taira to get the win, man. I think he goes out there. I think he wins this by submission. But, I don't think he's going to run through Park. Park is a good fighter, but Taira's just fought the better guys. He's beaten the better guys. And I think he's going to be really ready to go in there and show something and prove something after taking that loss to Royval. Seems to be a very intelligent fighter, and he seemed like he took that loss really hard. So I foresee him bouncing back, solid. You know what I'm saying? He gonna bounce back like a rubber ball. You know what I'm saying? Bounce back like a rubber ball off a grade school wall. You know what I'm talking about? So we will see how this goes down, but I got Taira to go out there and get the win. Co-main event. Because the UFC digging deep for their co-main events here lately. They pulling out all the stops for their co-main events. Monteus Rebecki steps in the octagon with Chris Duncan. So I'm actually going to go along with Chris Duncan on this. I know Rebecki is a tank. I know he's fast for his size. He's got a chin. He's very durable. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, man, I don't know. I just think Duncan's got it. I think when I was looking back at the guys Duncan has fought and the guys Rebecki has fought, both of their level of competition is close or about the same. But I just think that Chris Duncan is a very unassuming guy. I mean, I know he's tatted up and, he's in good shape and everything. But there's something about him where I don't know. I feel like some of his opponents underestimate him, especially his grappling and his wrestling. And he just tends to go out there and do his thing, man. I think I'm going to go along with Chris Duncan to go out there and get the win, to be honest with you. I mean, I could definitely... Another thing about Rebecki is he's definitely all gas, no brakes early on, right? But as he starts to get into the third round, early third round, into the second, especially if he's had to do any sort of grappling or grappling defense, homie starts getting tired. His shots get very labored, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's definitely where Chris Duncan could take advantage. As long as he can weather that early storm and not get knocked out or anything like that or clubbed and subbed, I think Duncan could definitely go out there and get the win. So I'm going along with him to get the win. Another fight I really want to see, I think it's actually going to be a banger for as long as it lasts, but I think it's going to be a pretty quick finish. Elvis Brenner steps in the octagon with Esteban Ribovics. I got Ribovics, of course, outstanding striker, extremely talented, very well-rounded fighter. Elvis Brenner is the type of dude that a lot of MMA promotions need. You need a guy that loses spectacularly, right? Not just a guy that's going to go out there and just lose to a 3-round decision, or he gets stopped but he just kind of slumps over. You want a guy like Elvis who's going to go out there and lose in spectacular fashion. You know what I mean? Type of guy, you hit him with a hard right hand, he does a backflip and passes out. You know what I'm saying? Something wild. That's that homie. So I got Ribovics to go out there and get the win. We also have another fight I really want to check out. Nora Cornoli steps in the octagon with Carol Rosa. I got Cornoli to go out there and get the win. I just think she's all around a more talented fighter. I think when you look at both of their records, as far as who they fought and who they've recently lost to, Cornoli only has that one blemish on her record since being in the UFC. I got to go along with Carol Rosa to take that L, to take that hard L against Cornoli. So we'll see how that plays out, but that's what I'm going with. How about this one? This one I can't even call. I've looked at this. I can't call it because one of these guys is extremely tricky. We got Neil Magny stepping in there with Zaleski dos Santos. Man, this is one of those where I could see Zaleski dos Santos going out there, literally putting hands on Neil Magny over and over and over again until eventually, if he goes out there and does his thing, I don't see this going to a decision or to the scorecards. I see Neil Magny getting laid out. With that being said, Neil Magny is tricky. He's a tricky guy, and I could also see a world where Dos Santos, I could definitely see a world where he goes out there in the first round, lays it all on the line, maybe catches Neil Magny, like rocks him, wobbles him, or drops him, either one. Then he goes out there, pours out all the strikes trying to get him out of there, but Neil Magny, calm, collected, cinches up the arms, cinches up the knees almost, you know what I'm saying, lays there on his back with Dos Santos in his guard and rides out the first round. And then that second round, Dos Santos is not moving as quick. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of lactic acid in the arms from all of the shots that he threw. He slows down a little bit, and Neil Magny gets him to the ground and starts performing his game. Next thing you know, 3 rounds is over, and Neil Magny wins by decision 2-1. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely a world. So for this one, I can't even call it, but I'm going to be interested in seeing it because either way that plays out, I think it's going to be hilarious. It won't be as fun to watch Neil Magny grind out a decision, but it'll be hilarious because Neil Magny's still out there grinding cats out, and that's always funny. So we're going to see together who's going to win that fight. A fight that I think is going to be a banger for as long as it lasts. Danny Silva steps in there with Kelvin Vallejos. I got Kelvin Vallejos to get the win, of course. Kevin Vallejos. But I think it's going to be action-packed for as long as it lasts. I think Kevin knocks him out. Let's move on. Another fight that I can't call at all, but it should be sloppy, extremely action-packed, and no one knows what's going to happen in a way. Rodolfo Vieira sits in there with Tresean Gore. Now, the last time Tresean Gore fought, this was outstanding for me. Like, I watched that fight with my son, and we was tripping out at the heart that Tresean showed. This man should have been out of that fight 12 times, and he just kept coming back, you know what I'm saying? Until eventually he did end up losing the fight. But he stuck it out. And the way I look at this fight, you know, Rodolfo is one of those guys where he goes in there the first round, he does a lot of grappling. You know what I'm saying? Second round, Tresean starts to lay them shots on him, lay them hands, let them hands go. Beginning of the third round, I could definitely see a world where Rodolfo is gassed. He's tired. I mean, you look at the man, he's built like a Greek god, but he ain't got a whole lot of gas to him, you know what I'm saying? So, third round, Tresean, if he's able to still hang around, could definitely see a world where he gets a win. He's chaotic. You know what I'm saying? The dude throws random shots. He goes for very violent guillotines. I don't see him doing that to Rodolfo at all. I mean, really, at the end of the day, Rodolfo should win this fight. This is his fight to lose. But Rodolfo, he don't have no energy. He loses his energy extremely quick, right? So I could definitely, if Tresean's going to win, it's going to be due to Rodolfo gassing himself out and Tresean still hanging in there. But smart money says that Rodolfo goes out there and figures out a way to sub him first or second round. But if that don't happen, Tresean Gore is in play. So you might want to be taking a look at the live betting odds, because if he doesn't get him out of there in that first and second round, that third round, you might want to be paying attention to Tresean Gore, because Rodolfo, even though he's looked better as far as the gas tank as of recent, there's no guarantees. So that's that, man. That is the latest Apex card. Those are the fights. It's not all the fights, but those are the ones I want to check out. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you think Reinier De Ridder fits in the upper echelon of the middleweight division. Let me know who you got in the Tatsuro Taira Park fight. Let me know who's going to win that. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.